This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Yunxiao finally looked shocked as he looked up at the sky. The power emitted by the 10 huge fireballs was like that of a real sun. If they fell down like this, even his indestructible golden body would not be able to stop them. Luo Ying's voice sounded from the side, "It's indeed 10 days in the same sky, congratulations. However, if the 10 suns fall, I'm afraid half of Songyue City will be destroyed. Why don't the few of us seal the surrounding space to prevent the energy waves from being too great?" Ran. Zhang Chong also nodded slightly and stood out, ready to attack. Ren Guanglin from Myriad Treasure Store also stepped out. Only Su Donha looked cold and ignored their behavior. "Just the three of us will do. That's enough," Luo Ying said softly. He slowly extended his right hand and a beam of Emperor Qi shot into the sky. Zhang Chong and Ren Guanglin also made their moves. 3 streaks of Emperor Qi spread out in the air and formed a powerful boundary. It then enveloped the area and locked the phenomenon of 10 suns in the sky. The entire Songyue city was in shock. They did not understand what had happened over there. Only a few high-level people were making various speculations. There were even many people who directly flew into the air and flew towards the barrier. Liang Yui's body seemed to be burning at the moment. She looked coldly at Yunxiao in the air and said, "I'm very curious about how you're going to deal with the 10 days in the same heaven, or are you going to just disappear like smoke?" She raised her right hand high and suddenly pointed it down, shouting, "10 suns in the same sky, destroy the heavens and earth." 10 huge fireballs danced in the air and spun down, then rushed toward Yunxiao one after another. The light of the scorching sun dazzled Yunxiao's face. Everyone thought that he had given up all hope, but in fact, Yunxiao was still thinking about how to take the attack. Should he throw the Divine Realm tablet, the gourd Little King Kong, the Dynasty Bell, or directly use the Devil Sky Silk and the imperishable golden body to resist it? With too many choices, it was easy for people to be confused. Forget it. It doesn't matter if others recognize me. I, Li Yunxiao, have never been afraid of anyone. Clang. At this critical moment, Yunxiao stuck the sword into the ground and placed his right hand on the hilt. A dragon's shadow slowly poured into the northern heaven cold star sword from his arm, and a dragon's roar burst into the sky. Not only that, but his body also began to demonize. Scales appeared on his body, and 2 horns grew on his forehead. As the dragon shadow was poured into the sword, a dragon appeared on the sword, emitting a terrifying sword intent. Demon transformation? Is this his trump card? The pupils of all the experts in the surroundings constricted. They could sense the power coming from Yunxiao and the sword intent emanating from the northern heaven cold star sword. It was no longer below that of a martial supreme. A ball of golden light condensed in Yunxiao's left hand, and he slowly placed it in front of him, turning it into a lotus that attracted everyone's eyes. Suddenly, the golden lotus exploded like a star, and a dazzling golden light emerged, stinging everyone's eyes and forcing them to close their eyes. Mo Xiaochuan's pupils contracted slightly. 2 small prisms made of water vapor appeared in front of his eyes, directly reflecting the blinding power of the golden light. I knew it was a smokescreen. He dared to display his sword skill in front of so many experts. He's worthy of being my master. He's not afraid of trouble. At the moment the golden lotus bloomed, Yunxiao's northern heaven cold star sword finally shot out a rainbow-like sword beam. It was a dragon flying in the sky, and the stars around it flickered and vanished, while the 10 suns were overshadowed by it. It was the sword technique, star obliteration. Liang Yui's eyes were blinded by the golden light, but she could clearly feel the shocking sword qi. Like a divine arrow shooting at the sun, a dragon shadow rushed towards the 10 suns. Boom boom boom. By the time everyone opened their eyes, they saw the 10 suns had completely erupted. The entire barrier was a sea of red fire, and nothing else could be seen except for the flames. However, that overbearing and powerful force still transmitted waves through the enchantment, making everyone's hearts jump. Xian Wudi's eyes were filled with shock, and a huge question mark appeared in his mind. Would he be able to take the 10 suns in the sky if it landed on him? The answer made him very disappointed, and an indescribable anger spread in his heart. What a powerful force! Is that Li Yunxiao dead? Do you even need to ask? It must have been burnt to ashes. Can't you see the terrifying sea of fire within the barrier? However, I felt an extremely powerful sword chi just now. That feeling almost scared my soul out of my body. It was as if it wasn't any weaker than the 10 suns in the sky. Yes, I felt it too. However, that golden flower was too glaring. I was distracted and didn't see it. Ding Ling and the others were nervous when they heard the crowd's whispered discussions, almost all of whom were certain that Yunxiao would die. Although they knew Yunxiao's divine ability, they still could not help but feel anxious. As for Luo Ying and the other powerhouses, their eyes were filled with great shock. Just now, due to their carelessness, they had fallen into Yunxiao's trap and were blinded by the dazzling light of the golden flower. They felt very regretful that they could not catch the sword beam's move. What shocked them even more was that at that critical moment of life and death, Yunxiao was still trying to cover up. What was he hiding? Hiding that sword move? Could it be that there was some kind of secret that could not be revealed? At this moment, even Su Danhe, who was full of confidence, looked horrified. With his cultivation base, he could clearly sense that Yunxiao was not dead, and he was not even injured. In the sea of fire within the barrier, the power of the Star Destroyer sword technique was too weak. Although it broke through several of the sun's flames, most of them still hit his body. The demonic sky armor also materialized to resist the attack of the flames, but at this moment, it had lost all its demonic energy, and was like a profound artifact without any spirit energy, so it could not do much. A large amount of scorching sun still hit Yunxiao and burned his body. In the raging fire, he was not afraid of being seen. Spots of golden light appeared on his skin, blocking the sun and absorbing the other party's power at the same time to supplement and heal his injuries. Although it was only the initial stage of the inextinguishable golden body, it had almost reached a balance, allowing the wound to recover quickly. The power of the sun is almost gone, Zhang Chong said, the barrier should also be gone. He was the first to turn into a golden light and fly into the Gold and Money Gang's team. The power of the barrier in the sky immediately weakened. The other two also scattered, and the flames of the sun immediately spread out, scaring away some of the lower-ranked cultivators nearby. But, the power of the sun was like an arrow at the end of its flight. After a brief burning, it gradually extinguished, and Yunxiao's body emerged from the flames. Although he was not unscathed, he looked as if he was fine, and there was even a faint smile on his face. This Tao Wu. It was as if a thunderbolt had struck everyone's mind, and they almost lost their ability to think. They widened their eyes and rubbed them, afraid that they had seen wrongly. Why can't even kill 10 days in the same heaven? Su Danhe was also stunned and completely dumbfounded. Yes, he has too many secrets. Young master must be careful if you meet him in the future. Luo Ying reminded her softly. Tang Xian's face was more solemn and thoughtful than horror. Liang Yui's spirit was greatly weakened after using 10 suns in unison heaven, and her face began to turn pale. Although she had expected that Yunxiao might not necessarily be defeated by that move, she did not expect him to take it so easily, and that he would be fine. On the contrary, she had consumed a lot of her spirit energy. However, she was still an expert. After a moment of shock, she immediately regained her calm. Her figure began to fade in the air before slowly disappearing. Hiding in the void? It's a very old-fashioned move. Yunxiao chuckled and spread out his divine sense. Suddenly, he frowned and asked in surprise, strange, there are no spatial fluctuations. She didn't enter the void? How did it disappear? Not only Yunxiao, but all the experts around him trembled, because they had also discovered the same problem. Liang Yui was not just hiding in the void. Whoosh! Suddenly, a shadow appeared on Yunxiao's left side, and a sword beam slashed down. Yunxiao was taken aback. It was not until Liang Yui made her move that he noticed her existence. He immediately spread out a stream of mental power from between his brows, which rotated the surrounding space and teleported himself away, avoiding the sword chi. Teleportation? The crowd was also shocked. This was an extremely powerful skill that only 8th-tier alchemists could perform. Eh? Liang Yui's voice came from the sky. Clearly, she was also surprised by his sudden teleportation. After that, he could no longer catch any trace of her. Ren Guanglin couldn't help but say, damn it, these two actually still have a trump card. Was Yunxiao an 8th-tier alchemist? He can actually teleport. His words shocked everyone. If he was really an 8th-tier great alchemist, who could rival in the alchemy arts after that? Everyone who thought of this was in a daze. Was Tianyuan Trading Company going to stand out and become the biggest dark horse? Even if he lost to Liang Yui, it would only deduct 1 point from his score. With the strength Yunxiao had shown so far, not only was he fine under the 10 days in the same heaven, but he even had the mood to play tricks and hide his moves. Who in the 7 chambers of commerce could defeat him except Li Feiyu? Even Li Feiyu's eyes were filled with solemnity. He didn't have the slightest confidence in his heart. So what if he's an 8th-tier great alchemist? Don't worry, everyone. That Li Yunxiao will die in this battle. Suddenly, Sudanha's cold voice rang out. Her eyes were fixed on the arena, and she seemed to be full of confidence. Everyone was puzzled. How could Liang Yui win when even a super powerful move like 10 days in heaven could hurt Yunxiao? Could it be based on this mysterious disappearance technique? Liang Yui's sword beams kept shooting out from inexplicable directions, but Yunxiao could not catch them in advance. After a few rounds, Liang Yui's attacks became faster and faster, leaving only the shadows of her sword and Yunxiao's dodging. What's going on with Liang Yui? Xian Wudi had a horrified look on his face. He couldn't sense his opponent's existence at all, but those sword lights were so real. If he was in the arena, he would have been finished long ago. Zhang Chang's expression was also solemn as he said, What a strange secret technique. Even I can't catch her existence. I'm also very curious about what's going on. He had never seen such a movement technique in the martial skills of Empyrean 1 Pavilion. Could it be that Liang Yui's master had another master? At this moment, even Mo Xiaochuan and Halian Xiaowang's faces turned serious. Even with their cultivation bases, they could not see through the situation. Although they did not think that Yunxiao would lose, they could not continue to be entangled in this battle. Yunxiao dodged here and there, and even though he could teleport, he soon fell into a disadvantage. Even I can't sense it. I'm not unfamiliar with this situation. It's just that you can't be that person's disciple. It must be a similar situation simulated by some secret technique. Yunxiao suddenly fell silent and said slowly with a smile on his face, Your attack is still as fierce as ever, which means that your real body is not far from me. In fact, this move of yours is very easy to break. Do you believe me? Oh, ever since I've mastered this secret technique, no one has ever broken it. Liang Yui's voice rang out in the arena. However, every word came from a different direction, making it hard to grasp. Humph, arrogant. This kind of goading is useless against Yui, Su Donha sneered. Li Feiyu's expression was also grave. He was constantly thinking about what he would do if he were to encounter such a situation. That's because the people you met are too weak, Yunxiao said with a smile. You can hear me, which at least proves that my sound waves can reach where your body is. No matter how you hide, you must at least be at a point of contact with this space. Otherwise, you'll forever be lost in another space. Liang Yui said indifferently, You're right. However, there are an infinite number of points in space. Even if you use an indiscriminate attack, the probability of hitting me is 0. How are you going to find the point of contact? Moreover, this point can still be moved. Yunxiao smiled and said nothing. His eyes gradually focused as he stretched out his right hand. The dynasty bell slowly emerged in his hand, emitting a golden light and an ancient charm, looking magnificent and magnificent. Xian Wudi's pupils contracted, and his body trembled. He naturally recognized that it was the treasure Yunxiao had snatched at Mount Meru, and his eyes could not help but flash with resentment. He had returned empty-handed that day. It's actually very simple. As long as we use a sound wave attack from all directions, you won't be able to escape. When you're shaken by the sound waves, you'll definitely tremble. As long as my sound waves don't stop, you'll keep trembling. How will you hide then? Yunxiao's eyes turned cold as he clanged the dynasty bell in his hand. An ancient sound spread out, and the sound waves instantly spread throughout the entire space. What kind of profound level weapon is this Kasaya? Everyone present was shocked. Even if an ordinary sound wave attack could be used in all directions, it would never be as grand as this bell. It was full of ancient charm, as if time and time were flowing under the sound of the bell. This time, even Su Donha's expression changed completely. A trace of panic and shock flashed in her eyes. Liang Yui, I've caught you. The balance is leaning toward me. With a flash of sword light in his hand, Yunxiao suddenly thrust the Northern Heaven Cold Star sword at a point in the air. The frequency of the sound waves at that point had changed slightly, but it still could not escape Yunxiao's sharp divine sense. Humph, you want to leave? Under the influence of my bell, even the slightest frequency fluctuation can't escape my perception. As long as you resist the bell, it will definitely change. Unless you give up resisting, the power of the bell will directly enter your body, shaking your meridians, qi, and blood, and you will directly explode and die. The sword beam in Yunxiao's hand moved according to his perception, chasing in the direction Liang Yui was moving. You'll die if you resist, or you'll die if you don't resist. What do you choose? Bang. Yunxiao's Northern Heaven Cold Star sword was violently shaken, and the power of the sun pressed down. Liang Yui's figure gradually appeared in the air. Her eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. With a pale face, she used the flaming sun technique and attacked fiercely. She shouted, "Even if I reveal my true body, you can only resist. How can you defeat me?" The people from the Chamber of Commerce around were all shocked. If they were the ones who went up, who would have thought of such a wonderful method to force Liang Yui out under the circumstances just now? Even if he knew this technique, who could create such a powerful sound wave attack and control it so well that he could sense the slightest fluctuation under the sound wave? There's indeed a huge gap between us, so it's not easy to fight. However, after using the 10 suns in the sky and the stealth technique, your physical strength is less than a third of what it was before. How long can you hold on? Yunxiao chuckled. How long can you hold on? As he spoke, the sword in his hand did not stop for even a moment. He continued to use various sword moves to attack, depleting Liang Yui's physical strength and vital qi. Other than a few perverts, the lack of physical strength was a weakness of any woman. As Yunxiao kept attacking, Liang Yui finally began to fall into a disadvantage. The faces of the people around her turned dark, because they had all put their chips on the line, and now they had lost even their underpants. Liang Yui's face was ashen. She unwillingly circulated her flaming sun technique again, slowly forming a fireball. However, everyone could see that this was the end of the line, and the outcome would not change. Yunxiao chuckled as he teleported and disappeared from where he was. A foot appeared in the air next to Liang Yui and kicked her in the shoulder, sending her flying. Bang! That kick had directly sent Qi Jin into her body, shaking her qi and blood. She was thrown far away, leaving a long mark on the ground. The big fireball in the field also dissipated. The martial arts duel has already ended. Do you still want to continue? Yunxiao stood proudly in the field with a faint smile on his lips. In the eyes of the crowd, they all had their own thoughts, but most of them looked solemn. Especially Li Feiyu, Qian Wudi, and Tang Xan, the three outstanding talents of the younger generation. If it were them who had just fought with Liang Yui, not only would the outcome be unknown, but even if they could win, they would not have won so easily. All of a sudden, Yunxiao had become a great enemy in everyone's eyes. Li Yunxiao is the winner of this martial duel, Luo Ying said slowly. Do you have any objections? Zhang Chong, who had been looking like an outsider, turned serious after Yunxiao used the dynasty bell. No objections. I wonder what Elder Su thinks. Su Donha's face was already green and she couldn't speak. Her eyes were filled with defeat. This time, she had really fallen hard. Not only did she lose an elder, but she also lost a match before the two meetings even started. There were also countless primordial stones. And all of this was given to him by this young man. She really wanted to rush up and kill this person at all costs. But she knew she couldn't. With great difficulty, she spat out two words from her throat, trash. She glanced coldly at Liang Yui, who was embarrassed. The latter's body trembled under her gaze, and she felt a chill and humiliation surge up his heart. She raised her head and gave Yunxiao a resentful look, her eyes full of unwillingness and humiliation. Yunxiao frowned and said coldly, "Old woman, winning and losing is a common thing. It's really demeaning to call someone a good-for-nothing after losing." Su Donha's eyes were filled with anger and she said coldly, "You dare to scold me." A strong killing intent welled up in her heart, and she wanted to find a reason to kill Yunxiao in an instant. So what if I scold you?" Yunxiao said disdainfully, "If not for the fact that I am no match for you now, I would have slapped you to death. Just you wait. I'll slap you in a few years." Everyone broke out in a cold sweat. The courage and insight required to speak to a martial emperor in such a manner was not something an ordinary person could do. "You're looking for death." Su Donha's figure flickered and disappeared from the throne. Her actions were faster than her words, and by the time everyone heard her voice, she had already attacked the arena. Both Qianwudi and Tang Xian were shocked. If Yunxiao died and they could not get the information, they would have made a wasted trip. Only Yunxiao's cold snort was left in the field before he disappeared. He had already seen Su Donha's restless look, so he immediately teleported away and avoided that attack. Boom! A huge black pit suddenly appeared in the martial arts arena. They didn't even see how Su Donha attacked, and this was the result. Luo Ying's and Zhang Chang's expressions changed, and they immediately moved to block Su Donha. "Elder Su, you have to admit your loss," Zhang Chong said coldly. "The result of the martial duel has been decided, and we are all fair people." "Are you really as tasteless as Li Yunxiao said?" Su Donha gritted her teeth in anger as she looked at Yunxiao, who was gradually showing up behind them, and said coldly, "Li Yunxiao, I'll remember this name. I won't stop until I kill you." Yunxiao waved his hand impatiently and snorted. Whatever. You're not the only one who threw out harsh words after losing. Face should be won by strength, not by threatening with words, stupid bird. You coward, pfft. Under the extreme stimulation, Su Donha finally couldn't help but vomit out a mouthful of blood. As the great elder of the Empyrean One Pavilion, she had never been humiliated like this. Her eyes were completely red, and there was only one word in her mind: kill.